Hello and welcome to Religious Studies 361 Ethics. Today we begin with a new thematic block, Religion, Ethics, and the Economy. We are going to do this block into three different sections. The first one has to do with the concepts of religion and materialism. So today we're going to look at these two concepts, religion and materialism. The second block will be a brief review of Christian doctrine, Christian theology, and in the third one we will be looking at this important work by Max Weber, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. So, religion and materialism. We use the word materialism, being materialistic, this expression, usually in a vague sense, in a trivial sense. Oh, he's so materialistic, or she's so materialistic, like she thinks of money only and getting a new car and new stuff. However, in a philosophical sense, when we use the word materialistic and materialism, we mean something deeper. We express a belief that there is nothing but matter, that there is only this material universe and nothing outside it. So let's keep this image clear in mind. Say this is the universe with all it contains, and there is nothing outside there. Okay, you see the blackboard outside, but when you're true materialistic, there is nothing outside this. It's all self-contained. And we may think, okay, well, fine, yeah, maybe that's how many of you see it. Somehow we are practical materialists or practical atheists, in the sense that we don't really argue against the existence of God, but in a sense we feel there is nothing else because we don't see anything else. So we kind of think, well, where is this invisible being that's supposedly out there? I don't see him, and we kind of tend to think that, when I die, that will be it. There's nothing else, and I can believe there is someone else out there. Well, that makes you a practical atheist, a practical materialistic thinker. You can be a practical one with no theory, or you can be a theoretical one. But we're going to see what being a true materialistic thinker, meaning a true atheistic thinker, entails, what it really entails. Okay? So, we're going to compare both ideologies. As an example of a materialistic ideology, I will cite Marxism. You all heard of Marxism. Marxism is a good example of a materialistic, atheistic ideology. For Marx, there is only matter in the universe, nothing but matter. Everything is explained in material terms, therefore. What this means is that there is nothing like our independent thoughts, an independent sense of justice, or notions such as fairness or generosity. There's nothing like that. Everything, all of these concepts, have a material meaning and a material purpose. The same as cats have developed long claws so as to cope better with the environment and get more food by hunting, by killing other animals that way. Well, we have developed our thinking capacity, but it's only one more way of coping with the environment, getting more food for us. So even if we come up with ideas that sound truly objective, impartial, fair, just, like we are not looking after our own benefit, but we are being impartial for everyone. Well, Marxism predicts that's not so. All ideologies, all legal systems, all ideas we come up with, no matter how objective and generous and impartial they may seem, they have a practical, material purpose of getting more stuff for us, because they are just one more organ that we have to get more from our environment for survival, to get more food. In the last analysis, okay? That is a materialistic ideology. Marxism is a good example, as I said. Now, we're going to see now what problems we have to face if we are truly materialistic thinkers. When we take those ideologies to their last consequences, what kinds of problems we are faced with. And we are going to see these problems in connection with the philosophy that says, no, there is something else. The universe, the world isn't just matter, there is something else, otherwise we can't solve the problems that materialism presents us with. Okay? So we are going to review some of the arguments, the traditional philosophical arguments for the existence of God. Those philosophical arguments that claim that there must be a God. I'm not saying a Christian God or a Muslim God or any particular God, but some higher being. Otherwise, we can't really explain a number of things. So the first of these arguments is called the cosmological argument. The cosmological argument, which I am going to divide into several sections, 4 sections. The first one has to do with origins, the origins of matter, the origins of the universe.
So this is one of the problems?
This is how traditional philosophy looks at these problems that materialism presents us with, which I will discuss now. Okay? The first part is about origins, the origins of the universe. Now, let me explain this. For many years, from ancient times with Aristotle and all throughout the past 2,000, 2,500 almost years of philosophy, at least 2,300 since Aristotle, there was this idea that the universe had always been there, that the universe had never had a beginning, that it was eternal, it had always been there, and it would always be there. We don't understand how, or we don't know in what way this is possible, but this was the belief on the part of many philosophers and scientifically minded people for over 2,000 years. Now, in the 20th century, we found out, scientifically speaking, that the universe was not always there, that the universe did not always exist, that there was a time when the universe wasn't there. In other words, that the universe has an age, which has been put at about 13.7 billion years. And like everything that has an age, when you go back to point zero of that thing, you can say that before that point zero, that thing wasn't there. Does that make sense? So you guys have an age, and this desk has an age, and this computer has an age, and we can go back to the time when you were born, your very first seconds, whether you think your life started when you were actually born or when you were conceived. It doesn't matter. Wherever you want to take it, you go to the very first seconds, and before that, and before point zero, you were not. Correct? You did not exist. Well, if this object is the whole universe, when you go back to point zero of the universe and beyond, then the universe didn't exist. Meaning there was nothing. Because the universe is all there is. Right? Now, if there was nothing, we have a problem understanding how the universe came into existence. Because things do not come out of nothingness. Nothing, in this case, with capital N. We tend to think sometimes of nothing or nothingness as some kind of a dark void waiting to be filled. No, that's not nothingness. That's just emptiness, which is a very different thing. Something very different, a very different thing. So we go back there, there's nothing. Let me give you an example of what we mean by nothingness and nothing, because it's a very difficult concept, and sometimes I actually think it's only possible to understand when using analogies, examples. Otherwise, it gets really hard for the human mind to figure out what nothingness, sheer nothingness is. Imagine that, what is your name? Chris. Imagine that Chris's father met his mother at a party, at a birthday party that a common friend of them was giving. And they met and they liked each other, and there is Chris today, okay? Now, imagine that rather than going to this party, in the last minute, his father had decided to go to some other party, a better party. Some other friend called him, said, look, I have a better party for you. So he would have gone to a different party, and there he had met some other woman. And they had a different child. They liked each other, they married. So rather than Chris, would have someone else now. Call him John, Mary, we don't know. Who are those people who could have been born instead of Chris had his father gone to a different place that evening when he met his mother? Well, we don't know. They're just a silly idea. They do not exist. We don't know who they are, who they could have been. It makes no sense. They're known beings, right? Well, that is as close as we can get to the idea of nothingness. Those non-existing beings, who are they? Do they occupy any space? They don't. They could have been, but they're not. Well, believe me, those non-existent beings, as unreal, as silly as they sound, are a zillion times more real and more existing than nothingness. Because where there is nothingness, there isn't even anyone to imagine where it could be to exist like. There is not even a possibility, like in this case, there was a possibility that his father had met someone else. But there is nothingness, there is nothing of that. Nothing. Zero. Now, could this guy who might have been born instead of Chris, had his father met this other woman, could this non-existing guy produce anything? Could he come up with something? No, of course not. Well, if this non-existing guy, which is far more real than nothingness, could not produce anything for us to see, how could sheer nothingness produce this huge thing we call the universe, which is huge beyond the reaches of the human mind? There you have the problem, okay? How often do you see rocks popping up in the air suddenly for no reason? So you walk on campus, you look up, and you see this rock popping up, and you go, look, stone is being born. How often do you see that? Huh? Never? I don't see it. I think it's very unlikely, right? Very improbable. There may be a chance in a zillion that such a thing could happen, because we live in a world where there are rocks. Rocks exist to begin with. And there may be some physical law that we don't know of that may allow for it to happen. Who knows? Okay? Well, if you think that is improbable for a rock to suddenly appear like this in the middle of the air for no reason, I tell you, for where there is nothing with a capital N, nothingness, like this non-existing guy that we talked about, something to pop up is a zillion times far more improbable. In fact, it's simply not possible at all. Now, if you are a purely materialistic thinker, an atheistic thinker, what you're saying is that this whole thing did not exist at one point. We know that now for a fact. But that out of nothingness, this rock suddenly appeared.